happy about this part, just so you know. She
Right,
sprung
she
that
didn't
on
know
me when
that.
I got here. So, I don't know which side.
That's your best side, right there.
Okay, all right.
Let's go with that.
Okay. I'm Virginia Panoff. I'm the Director of Financial Aid at North Central. I've been there 15 years. And during that time, I want you to know I feel your pain. I did get 2 sons through college, one through his bachelor's degree and then his master's degree. Got him through that. He is now what I call a self-feeder. It's awesome. He just pays for himself now. He got married a couple weeks ago, actually here in Charlevoix at the barn. And so I did that one. Second son, got him through his bachelor's degree at Grand Valley. And then he decided he wanted to be in the Air Force. So he joined the Air Force. He is deployed right now, and with all the mess going on, we don't know where he is, but I assume there's sand and it's hot. So I'm kind of nervous about that. He's supposed to be home pretty quick, and I'm hoping it's very quick. But what I want to do tonight is just go through real quick about the FAFSA and the whole financial aid process that you will run into at any school, not just North Central. So any school, these are the basics of what you're going to see and hear. Anybody heard of the FAFSA? That's a good thing. Have you done it before for other kids? Well, come on up then. I don't have to stand up here, but no, I'm kidding you. I'm kidding you. I was thinking maybe I had some help tonight. What kind of colleges are we looking at, students? I know Michigan State may be here.
CMU.
Central?
Yeah.
Grand Valley.
Grand Valley? What are some other ones?
Michigan Tech.
Okay, so big ticket schools. Big ticket schools. I had no idea. We had some savings for our kids. We got through 2 years of my first son, and then we had to wing it after that. Second son, same thing, but we did it. Somehow you do it. You just take it a little bit at a time. But what we're going to talk about, types of financial aid, we've got scholarships and grants, which are considered gift aid, meaning it doesn't have to be paid back. There is a grant out there for teachers right now. It's called the Teach Grant. That is not one that we offer at North Central. You have to be careful with that one. If you're going to be a teacher, they do have it at Michigan State and the bigger schools. What the deal with that Teach Grant is, though, it is a grant at first, and it's $4,000 a year for 4 years. However, if your student does not go into teaching a STEM, science, technology,
Engineering and math.
engineering and math, and they are not in a low-income neighborhood, that grant turns into a loan, which is why we do not offer it at North Central. So be careful with that one. Pell Grants, you've maybe heard of those. There's something called an FSEOG grant. It goes in supplement with the Pell Grant to students. Scholarships, I heard a lot of different sources up here. Do you have a list in the counseling office of scholarships?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Through the Charlevoix County Community Foundation, I would assume.
And our local ones. I'll actually bring a stack in here.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So students, make sure you get that list and just listen around for other spots too. Self-help aid. I'm going to start with employment. You've heard of work study on campus. Schools have different kinds of work study. There's a federal work study and then just work study for students. What that means is each school that offers federal aid is given an allocation of funds to use for work study students that qualify. They have to meet need. So that type of employment, or even the college budget, a lot of times they employ students. Self-help aid, student gets a paycheck, they can put it towards school. And loans, there's actually a couple different kinds of loans if you'll go to the next screen. Students and parents can borrow through the federal government or private loans. There's 2 types of federal loans, subsidized and unsubsidized. What that means, subsidized, is while the student is still in school, taking 6 credits or more per semester, their loans are the interest is being paid on them by the government. They're authorized for so much, depending on what grade they're in, of subsidized. Unsubsidized, as it says, is not, the interest is not paid by the government while the student's in school. That accrues for the most part while they're in school, and at the end, just like any other loan, you owe more than what you originally took. I don't promote loans, but sometimes loans are necessary. And I tell students to look at it as an investment in your future. If you're heading towards a program of study where you will have the ability to pay back loans, take loans if you need them. But don't take loans the maximum you can get. Figure out what you need to get through and request just that dollar amount. You'll find that a lot of schools, when they award aid, once they get your FAFSA, they not only award the grants that the student's eligible for, but they also award loans up to the max that they can. We don't do that at North Central. We have students ask for loans instead and let us know. I don't want to get people in trouble with, oh, well, I'm eligible for $7,500. Yeah, give it to me. So watch that, where you just have to accept an amount. Make sure if you do want loans, look at what you need, not what you want. And yeah, only borrow what's really needed. Okay, the FAFSA. Those of you that have filled it out before, was it awful, terrible? It's not bad. It's really not bad. People have this thing in their head that it's just an awful thing, and it's terrible, and it takes forever, and it's so confusing. If you just go one line at a time, read what it says, take care of that question. There's even, when you do it online, a whole explanation along the side that can come up to explain to you what you need. I have on here file electronically. There is still a paper version of the FAFSA out there that you can get and send in. I think the electronic one is much friendlier because it does give explanations. The paper one gives a few, but the biggest difference is electronically, you will know within 2 days that it's been processed, and if there's any errors, what's going on with it. Might take a little longer for the school to get, but not that much longer. And if you do the paper one, it can take 6 to 8 weeks before you hear something, because someone's looking at them by hand, waiting in the mail for it to get there. So each school gets a list per year of how many filled it out electronically, how many filled out the paper form. The last time I looked a couple of years ago, we had 2 students that did the paper one. That was it. So it really is going away, the paper one. And what this FAFSA does is it does determine a student's eligibility for a Pell Grant. I think we're going to talk a little bit further about what goes into determining that. Here's where you want to fill out the FAFSA, FAFSA.gov. Remember the G-O-V. There is a FAFSA.com out there. There's a FAFSA.org. There's a FAFSA.whatever. But you want FAFSA.gov, because what FAFSA stands for is the free application for federal student aid. Every year we get a couple of students that call and say, well, I filled out my FAFSA and now they want my credit card. Well, that's because they're going to ask you at the end to pay for that if you are not at FAFSA.gov. The highest I've heard in the 15 years I've been there, I think, was $140 for them to push a button to send it on to the Department of Ed. And the one I hear the most is around $25 or $30, but even that's too much. This thing is free to do if you go to the right website. And that's what it looks like when you go to FAFSA.gov. It'll give you that choice. The first thing you need to do, though, and we're going to work on that tonight, we're going to move to a computer room, or a room that has computers in it. The FSA ID and password are needed for each student completing a FAFSA, and students that are dependent students also need a parent. They don't need both parents, a parent to also have an FSA ID and password to sign the FAFSA. It's kind of like setting up, when you use the ATM, you have a PIN you have to put in. This is very similar to that. So we're going to work on that. I can honestly say this is the hardest part of doing the FAFSA. It is a bugger. It is a bugger. These two have worked with students and parents. It's a bugger. They did it to make it easier, our U.S. Department of Education. I also understand easier does make it more secure, but holy cow. So if nothing else tonight, we'll at least get everybody their FSA ID and passwords set up. And then if you still have time and want to stay and work on the FAFSA, we can do that too. You will have the same one the whole time. The same, sorry, it's okay. You'll have the same FSA ID and password for all the years that your student is in school, or you are the student, you will have the same one. I don't usually recommend people write down their passwords on things, but this is one you might want to write down and just keep somewhere safe and confidential, because if you forget it, the schools can't help you. This is a U.S. Department of Ed system. You have to call them to get back on, and I've had a few people that have had to go out there and work with the Department of Ed, and they're always very nice, but it just takes a long time to get back on again. So kind of write it down and keep it handy. And we can go to a special website, or when you're starting the FAFSA, it's right there too, to get going, or towards the end for parents.
I'd say something about that too.
Yeah.
If you and your child's filling it out together, first I didn't know, me and my child both needed one.
Mhm.
You can't use the same email
No.
or cell phone number. I had
That's
to call
correct.
and get everything reset. So pain
Yeah.
in the butt, like my 18-year-old really looks at his email. So you have to use your students' stuff, so.
Yeah.
Probably not their school email.
Right, not their
because
school
that
email.
will be
Yeah.
gone
It took me a
next
while to get that
August
figured
if they're a
out.
senior. Make sure they have another email.
A lot of them have a Gmail, so I'd suggest using that one. Yeah. It is. You have to be so careful with it, so thank you for telling that. Okay. Okay, we looked at this. We can move on. Do I have it on there twice? Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at that. Okay. When you are completing the FAFSA, a lot of it is going to be demographic information, name, address, social security number, what year the student's gonna be in school, are they gonna live on campus, off campus, so a lot of it is demographic information. But there is a financial part for students and parents on the FAFSA. There is a section when you first go into the financial part, it asks you what type of tax return you did, and the tax year that we're working on right now, they are using prior year. So if it's the 2020 and the 2021 FAFSA, it's the taxes from 2018 that they're looking at right now. Another U.S. Department of Education, great idea. So what you'll do when you get to the section of, the reason they're doing this too, and it does make sense, is most people have completed their taxes from 2 years ago. When it used to be just prior year, and you could start the FAFSA January 1st for the year coming up, a lot of people didn't have their taxes done yet. So they either waited until later, till they had their taxes done, or it says in there to please go back in when you do get your taxes done if you haven't completed them. I'd say less than half the people remembered to do that, so they'd have to be reminded. It held up aid for students. But going 2 years back, FAFSA thinks that more people will have it done. We still have some that haven't filed for 2 years ago, but it's a lot less than it used to be. So what will happen, once you answer all this, it'll determine and ask you, do you want to go to the IRS and have your tax information brought directly into the FAFSA? always say yes if you can. You'll see down the line, you'll have saved a whole lot of time and effort. So it will need to authenticate who you are by a couple things, tax ID or social security number, of course, and also what your address was on your tax form from 2 years ago. So that's why it's handy to have that 2018 tax return with you. That has caused some issues with people getting in to the IRS to be able to do that, because if you put on the FAFSA, let's say Elm ST for street, but on your tax return you spelled out street, it won't let you in. So it's really handy to have that 2018 tax return with you just to kind of see the address. Plus people have moved, and it's going to want the address that was on that tax return even if you moved. So you'll need that with you. What it'll do, it'll load the information in. It'll ask you, does this look correct? Do a quick glance. Come on in, have a seat. If it looks correct, say yes. And then it will ask, do you want to bring it into the FAFSA? Say yes. So many people get to that point and they just skip it and move on. And then at the school, we get the FAFSA, but it says data retrieval attempted but not finished, something like that. So always remember to bring it into the FAFSA. Once it's in the FAFSA, remember to finish the FAFSA. There's still more to go. Because we have a lot of students that get to that point too and think they're done. They shut it down and go, and then, well, did you get my FAFSA? We didn't, because they didn't finish it. So a couple pointers on that. Okay.
So if you have ever had your identity stolen on your taxes, it won't work. That's what happened to me. So we had to go it was handy to have the taxes there, and then you could just take line by line. They'll tell you what information to take.
Right.
It just takes longer.
And there is a way, if you've had identity theft, there are some different forms and things that we have that we can get things figured out and help you out with too, to get the information we need. So, okay. So you made it through the FAFSA, you got everything submitted, you used the IRS data retrieval, you finished the FAFSA, you signed it, the student and the parent signed it, you submitted it, and off it went. You will hear through the student's email that they have received it. You'll usually hear that within a couple hours, sometimes even within 10 minutes, people have gotten it and said, we've received it, now we're gonna work on it. And then, usually within 24 hours to 48 hours, depending on the time of year that you're doing it, if you're doing it like the week before school starts, it might not be that quick because suddenly a lot of people decide they have to do it then. And it really gets balled up quite a bit. So the student will get an email, says it's been processed, and it asks the student to please go look at your student aid report. You get to that by going to the FAFSA.gov, and there is a place to check that you want to look at the student aid report, because what that student aid report's going to do, it's going to tell you if there's any mistakes on it. If there's mistakes on it, the school cannot process it. Those errors have to be corrected first, and the FAFSA has to be clean. Some of the errors that we see, the biggest one is people that don't use the IRS data retrieval and fill it out line by line based on, it tells you if you did a 1040, go look at line 46, put that amount in. For some reason, they put the same amount of income that they earned, the same amount for taxes too. Now, thank God for those people. They're helping us out quite a bit by giving all their money to the government to help us, but don't need to do that. That messes it up big time. Another big one we see is the parents filling out the FAFSA, and so used to filling it out, they put their own social security number in for the student. It gets really messed up then. So that's a big one we see. Or you get fat fingers and you transpose two numbers on the social security number. That causes a lot of issues too, so be real careful on that kind of thing. Those are the biggest errors that we find. Okay, what happens on the school side? We aren't sent FAFSAs automatically. Schools have kind of an electronic mailbox with the U.S. Department of Education, and we go in and pull them out and bring them into our systems. We try and do it almost every day. Bigger schools maybe can't do it quite that often because you like to finish what came in first before you start bringing more and more in and you get really behind. But, so usually within 5 days after the FAFSA is submitted, schools should have it and should be working on it. What we do when we get it in, we have to look at it. We see if it's all clean, all good, and we can award the student. We award the student. And most schools don't use paper anymore. They get with the student through their school email. Something you really, really have got to get used to is watching your student email for whatever school you're at and what number you've been assigned. That's how the school will notify you of all kinds of things. Not only financial aid stuff, weather closings, class changes, you name it, it goes through student email. And I know there are ways to have schools' student emails brought into your Gmail account or the account that you look at the most. So just make sure you're constantly checking that.
So for example, if a student applied to 3 different colleges, they've already applied, sent their transcript through Parchment, they've gotten accepted, you do the FAFSA, you've sent it to all 3 of those, because you could select as many schools as you want, 10.
Up to 10.
So then, it used to be the FAFSA you didn't do until January 1st. Are colleges now processing those in October when they get those?
Quite a few are. Some of the community colleges don't do it quite that quickly, but the big schools are the CMUs, the Westerns, the Michigan States, the U of M's. They're hopping on them and doing them right away. What we do at North Central is we don't run it through the process that we have to do to see if we can award you. We see that we have it in. We send an email to your regular email account that you put on the FAFSA, not a student email, and let you know, we've received it, please watch for information in February or March from us. And I think a lot of schools that aren't awarding right away are doing that to say, we at least have it, but hang tight and we'll get you more information in a couple months.
So would a student, if they applied to Michigan State, Central, and Western, they'd have to go into each of those portals, their emails from each of those schools that they created?
If they're
and check their
accepted.
status, right?
If you haven't been accepted, I don't think the schools are going to necessarily, we don't. If you haven't been accepted at North Central, we don't do anything with it. Because in order for us to award aid, you have to be an accepted student in a program of study. And if you haven't even applied, we don't know what your program of study is, we don't know any of that. And I think quite a few schools are similar, that if you haven't even applied, they won't send too much.
So what if they haven't applied to all the schools that they want to apply to? Does that school that you select just hang on to?
Yeah.
And then once they apply and they're accepted?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, then they'll start sending stuff out, matching it up. Yes. Yep. So we award if we can, and let you know through student email, you've been awarded. Check your portal, see how much you've been awarded. Or, if we're not able to award the student, let's say they're a returning student and maybe their academics are poor and we've made them ineligible, we let them know that too. Or, student could be asked for verification and go on. And this is where it's going to, you'll be happy that you did the IRS data retrieval. But soon as your student, or you, if you're the student, get notification that you've been selected for verification, yes, please settle down. It's okay. It's all right. It's not that hard. What you're going to be asked for is, we'll send an email, and most schools have a link. We usually need a verification worksheet, whether the student's a dependent or independent, separate for each student. We provide links to those, and most schools do. Get you right to the form that's needed. You can print it off. Some of them you can fill out online, get it signed, and submit it. Sometimes we are asked for 2018 tax return. If you didn't use the IRS data retrieval or weren't able to, then we have to have a copy of the tax return signed or a tax transcript if you can't find a copy of your tax return. Those are ordered from the IRS, and they take a little time to come out. But right here, you did the IRS data retrieval. It's cool. If everything came in fine, you're not going to need any of that. You'll just need the verification form. That's it. Go ahead.
So is it true that 1 out of 3 people get picked for verification?
Almost.
And most community colleges verify all students, like 100% of their students.
Yeah.
So community colleges will verify most. What was I gonna say? Oh, when you get your student aid report, when you click on your student aid report online, if there's an asterisk next to your expected family contribution, it means that you've been selected for verification. So you can check, like 2 days after you submit your FAFSA, you can check if you've been selected for verification. So you can have that stuff ready so that when your schools contact you, you can just send it right out.
And you'll be good to go. That reminded me, I was going to talk about something else. Say it again, sorry, no. What was it I was going to talk about on this?
You're more likely to get picked if you didn't use the retrieval tool, all right?
You know, that's what we were told by the Department of Ed, but we're finding it's not true. People are picked anyways. We do not verify everybody at North Central. We don't have time to do that. But when students are selected, we have to get it. The U.S. Department of Ed says any school is not supposed to have more than 30% of their students selected for verification. Most schools are around 60% or higher. So, anyways.
Do the funds run out for those?
Pardon me?
Do the funds run out? Like sooner you apply or get this all turned in, verified, or?
Pell grants do not run out.
Okay.
That's an unending bucket that comes from the Department of Ed. But that FSEOG grant that I was talking about, that does run out. Schools are only allotted a certain amount of those funds in their bucket. So it starts going out to the students that get their stuff in the fastest and are awarded the fastest. So that is one good thing to have in. I know what I was going to talk about. The EFC that we talked about. Estimated family contribution. That is what is determined by the FAFSA. All the questions that you are asked as far as income, number in the family, how many are in college in the family, what assets do you have, your tax return. There's just a multitude of things that goes into what's called this federal formula that then spits out a number. That is your estimated family contribution. It doesn't necessarily mean, let's say the number comes out at 18,000. They don't expect you to be able to write a check for $18,000, that you should be able to have that. I like to look at it as a determiner of if the student is Pell Grant eligible or not by the number that kicks out. The number this year for an EFC is around 5,500, I believe. That if your EFC is 5,500 or below, the student generally will get a Pell Grant. Anything over that, they're not eligible for a Pell Grant. Loans are fine, good to go. But it also takes part of the need that a student has. And need is different for every school. Can I write on this? Sure. Okay. Each school has to have what's called a cost of attendance. There are 5 markers that have to happen in each school's cost of attendance if they do what's called Title IV aid from the Department of Ed. There has to be a tuition and fees, a book, transportation, other, and room and board. Those 5 elements have to happen. So let's say at community college, for an entire year, cost of attendance is $15,000. Seems high, but there's an element in there for room and board, for books. That's not just tuition. There's all kinds of other costs in there that aren't hard dollar costs. Hard dollar costs are books, tuition, and fees. Okay, let's look at a 4-year big school. That is probably at least $30,000 just to have nice round numbers. Your camera's probably not getting this. Okay. Okay, let's say the EFC for this student, they're looking at 2 schools, is 5,000. There's still need of $10,000 here. 5,000 here. There's need of 25,000. This EFC is going to be the same no matter what school the student goes to. Just because it's a high-cost school or a low-cost school doesn't mean that EFC is going to change between 2 schools. So you can see that need is going to be more at a bigger school. That's what schools try to fill with this. If it's a full-time student, they'll have some Pell coming. Not a lot, but some. At those schools, they'll have Pell. So that can be taken off. Let's say that's $3,000 of Pell. Put Pell here. So at this school, we now have 7,000 that the student's looking for. At this school, they need 22,000. That can be filled with loans, scholarships, parent loans for dependent students. But you can kind of see where an EFC in need, EFC is going to stay the same no matter what school you're at. It's the need part that's going to change from school to school, and the need that has to be filled. Now, need, depending on where the student lives, is different. Obviously, both my kids, one went to Grand Valley. Didn't we have a Grand Valley person here? Back here. Were you Grand Valley?
Yes.
Okay. And my other guy was Lawrence Tech. Lawrence Tech's a private school. It was very expensive. It almost felt like we could just write a check when the other one went to Grand Valley, because it was such a huge difference in cost. But we looked at hard dollar first. How are we going to pay these hard dollar costs in terms of the tuition and fees and get their books? From there, we looked at where are they going to live. They're obviously not going to be able to live at home. So is res hall better, or renting a house and them having roommates better, or having an apartment? So those costs you can attempt to control better than you can the hard dollar cost, tuition, fees, and books. And anymore, books are getting to be crazy nuts expensive. Math books are the worst.
Pay like $500 for an access code.
Yeah, and you can't sell the book back on math books because you're given this access code to go into worksheets and workbooks and things. You aren't given the workbook anymore. You go online and you need that access code. One-time access code, you're done. The book goes to the garbage if you don't need it anymore because they don't buy them back. Not like when I was in school back in the late 1800s. It was a lot different then.
Quick question. So if you aren't going to qualify for any Pell, it's still a good idea to fill out this FAFSA because it might be something you have to do to get merit-based scholarships, correct?
Yes. Neither one of my kids qualified for Pell, but we still had to do the FAFSA because they did qualify for some scholarships, and they wouldn't have gotten those scholarships if we didn't have a FAFSA done. Or if you think you're going to need a little bit in student loans or a Parent Plus loan, that FAFSA has to be done. Kind of what I like to tell you is just know you have to do it. Don't try and find a way around it. It just has to be done. And just look at it as one more thing, getting your kid ready for school to be done. Now, I talked about, any more questions on that? Clear as mud, pretty much? Yeah, okay, I know.
Wait, are you going to talk about who has to fill out the FAFSA if there's a divorced family? I've had a couple calls on who should fill it out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we can talk about that. That is pretty well explained on the FAFSA when you're doing it online, but there's a lot of different circumstances. It's not just the original mom and dad anymore and 2.4 children. There's a lot of blended marriages or single parents. The way the FAFSA works, if it's not the old-fashioned traditional mom and dad and 2.4 children, If parents are divorced, the dependent student has to use the parent they lived with more than 50% of their time in the prior year. Okay?
What if
So-
it's 50-50?
If it's 50-50, then what you look at is who supported the child 50% or more in the
What if it's
last year.
50-50?
If that's still the same, then you go back to the time that one parent had the child more than the other. They lived with one parent or the other more.
Can I explain this to you?
What if
Because
it's never been that
I'm
way?
in the
Yeah, what
same,
if it's
we're in the
just
same
either
boat.
you were married or
Just a second. Let's start over here. What's your question?
There is no, I mean, it's been 50-50 since the moment we were apart. There was no, someone had the child more than the other from the beginning.
yeah,
of
no
that
child
separation.
support, no anything, just
Then you need to make a determination.
Okay.
Can I help you guys out with that? I was in the same boat and I've had 2 kids go to college already. It was basically my ex-husband and I, one year I would claim the kids.
Okay,
The next year he would claim the kids.
okay.
Whoever claims the kids on the taxes, am
It's
I
how
not
you
right,
do-
is supposed to
No.
file?
No.
Okay.
No, because
Okay.
people can have the agreement like you did. One year
Okay.
I claim them, the next year you claim them,
Yeah.
but they always live with me.
Okay.
But
So-
because he pays support, all right, you can take them some years on your taxes, I'll take them the other year. And I've seen a lot of divorce decrees like that for, so you just need to make a determination if it's been exactly equal.
Would it be beneficial for the person who makes the least amount of money then to file?
Yes. I don't know if Virginia can say that, but.
But it's okay if I do?
Yes.
Because that makes sense to me.
That's the
I might have to
smartest
get
thing.
divorced. We just
I was gonna
celebrated our
say,
anniversary.
And I am on the camera going, that was not my voice, okay?
Riley?
With like the tax stuff and like with the parent that has like a lower income, what if your parent, their 2018 tax records show like their previous job, which was higher income, and now it's lower? Can you use more current stuff?
Yes, that's what we're gonna get to here.
Cool.
Yep, we're gonna get there. Is that explain enough kind of for you, what you're looking at? If a student, I don't know if we have anybody in here to go into the homelessness and student was awarded the court, things like that, that's a whole nother set of rules and regulations that feel free to call us, we can help you through that, that's no problem. It can get really confusing, so. Okay, yes, remember I said prior year, so 2 years ago. A lot of things change in 2 years, jobs change, you move, income's different, all kinds of things. So schools are allowed to do something called special circumstances. Most of the ones that I do are listed here. Change in income, person switched jobs, one or the other parent. Generally a dependent student is not gonna have that big of a change in income that they've earned in high school or if they're a dependent student. But change in income is a big one that can happen in 2 years. Employment status kind of goes along with that. A few years ago, things were really bad. Shops were closing up, all kinds of things were going on. People did not have jobs. So employment status was a big one. Change in marital status, the parents have now divorced, and 2 years ago it was a joint return. Now I've been living with my mom more than my dad, and she doesn't make near what she did 2 years ago. That's what this is for, okay? This is also for unaccompanied youth and homelessness. But really what you need to do is call the financial aid office of the school that you're going to and tell them the situation, and they'll be able to let you know if, yes, that is something that we can look at, and here's what you'll need to get us. Okay?
Could I just add one
Mhm.
of the, I think one of the biggest things, and I've been talking with freshmen even, is the best thing you can do, school is really your job, because that's where you're gonna get the most money, I think. If you're going down to a 4-year for Saginaw Valley or Central, any of those give automatic freshman scholarships, thousands of dollars if you have a certain GPA and SAT score. So really that, more than anything, I think can be the biggest help if you treat school as your job, because it will pay off in the end by making lots of money.
Well, and even in school, people talk about, what's the difference, why can't I be full-time in school and work full-time? I gotta see if I can remember this, and maybe you guys can help me. So for every 3-hour class that you're taking, 3 credit hours, 6 hours outside of class are needed to do homework. So you've got 9 hours already invested in this. So let's say you have 12 credits, which is considered full-time. You add 38 hours to that. No, 28 hours to that. You've got 40 hours. So if you've got 40 hours of between going to class and doing your homework, and you're working 40 hours, that is sort of a setup for failure right there. It just is pretty tough to be successful doing that. Now, working part-time, going full-time, that's pretty doable.
So if you're ever eligible for like work study, which means that you can get a job through campus, or sometimes it's like a subsidized job off campus, they'll only let you work up to 20 hours per week because they recognize that school is your full-time commitment. But work study can be used to pay your tuition, so it's another way for students to get some money to help pay off. And again, it's only 20 hours a week, it's a little bit more manageable.
It is very manageable, and in a lot of jobs on campus, just speaking for North Central, your 20 hours aren't filled with work from the minute you get there till the minute you leave. They have time to do their homework a lot of times if it's a slow day that they're scheduled on and the supervisor really doesn't have anything for them to do your homework. Now, if you work in the cafeteria, that doesn't happen very often. They're usually pretty busy. But yes, that is a very good point for students that are going to work. Okay, what do we have next? You can do this, all right? You can do this. What questions do you have? Are you ready to get started on that? Yeah.
So our oldest is first-year student at Saginaw Valley. And so last year when we were here, you know, it kind of had in my mind that between scholarships and loans, we'd be set. She did very well in scholarships. She took out a $5,500 loan. We did not qualify for subsidized, so she had to take it unsubsidized.
Right.
But the maximum she could take was $5,500.
As a freshman, that's correct.
As a freshman.
Yeah.
And then the rest that she had to make up, she had in savings. We're fine this year. Next year, some of her scholarships don't roll over. And so now we're kind of where, how do we take care of the rest? And then in 2 years,
Yeah.
I've got my son going, wanting to go to tech, and I'm looking at the 30 grand.
Yeah, I know.
And
I know.
I'm looking at, where do I come up with $30,000 a year when you can only take out so much in loans? with
The
federal?
student can only take out so much in loans depending on your year in school. The Parent Plus loan can go up to the cost of attendance less other aid.
Okay.
Which is, I'll be honest, that's how we did a lot of it, is
The
through Parent Plus
Plus,
loans.
obviously that accrues interest, and do you start making payments right away on that
You can if you
also?
want to.
Or can the principal balance be deferred until they graduate?
You can do either way. It asks you when you're filling out the master promissory note how you want to do it. If you want to do payments right away or wait until student's not in school anymore or taking 6 or less credits.
In addition to that, if you apply for the Parent Plus loan and you're denied because they don't think that you can do it, your student is then eligible for more student loans. They will then be able to get, I think it's 3,000 more, 2,000 more, so that helps a little bit.
Right.
So just, if you're worried about like not getting approved, like my mom never would have been approved, so, you know, that can help.
On the Parent Plus, say we want to start making those payments immediately, and then next year, one of us can't work for some reason, do we get to, is there an option to, now we need to defer this until the end of the education? Or once I select I wanna make payments all along, I'm stuck in that.
You can make changes.
Okay.
You just need to call who your servicer is and tell them the circumstance. I don't wanna switch it now. That's all. Yep.
One thing I did see with the unsubsidized loan, I'm assuming the parent plus is the same. If you don't pay the interest every month, at some point that gets compounded, so then you start
Oh,
paying
yeah.
interest on interest.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's how they get it?
That happens, just like, yep, just like a regular loan. It's out there.
And sometimes it might be better to take out a different type of personal loan, right? Parent Plus loans aren't necessarily the best deal, are they?
You'd have to shop around to see about maybe doing a second mortgage or a home equity loan. You can look at that.
That's ridiculous.
I know. You can look at borrowing against your retirement account.
It's also ridiculous.
I don't promote any of those, but they are alternatives that people can do. Yeah, personally, I think there's other ways to get your kid through school than using your retirement funds. You're gonna need it. Because I can bet they aren't gonna take care of you the way you've become used to.
Well, one of the things too is if you have multiple kids that are in college, they split it in half, right? They take your
They take,
SAR and
yes,
it goes in half, right?
I don't know if it's half, but they do take into account when a family has more than one in college, definitely. My brother-in-law and his wife had 4 boys in college at the same time. It's crazy. I don't know how they did it. They did it. What else? Anything else? Okay.
Might be a kind of silly question. But the FAFSA you fill out every year.
Yes,
The FSA is one time only.
yes, exactly. And what will happen years subsequent down the line, a lot of information will pre-fill into that FAFSA. Name, social security number, address, some things might have to be changed if you've moved, that kind of thing. Financials will never pre-fill, but a lot of other things will pre-fill. You can also, if you have 2 in college, she was talking about, you can transfer a lot of that parent information to your other students' FAFSA too, which is nice.
And
You
when
have
our
to start
second
over.
one comes in school, can we still use our same FSA ID?
Yep.
As a parent?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
And then when you get to the very end of that one, they'll ask you, do you have another student?
Oh,
And then
okay.
you say yes, and then it'll pre-populate
Yep.
for that other, start of the other student.
Yep. That is nice.
One more thing on the Parent Plus loans, you can't, just my sister has this issue, she cannot transfer it over to her daughter.
No.
As much as she'd like to then give that loan to her now that she has a job, it's still in her name.
It's always gonna be in their name. I have had parents whose kids do take over that loan though, at one
Yeah.
point. So, it's whatever you work out for your student.
So we're here if you want to stay and start on your FSA ID. We're also doing a workshop on November 7th during parent-teacher conferences. If you want to come in and work in the computer lab on UFASFA. If that date doesn't work for you, Brandy's here as well, or myself.
Yeah, and I've got my planner, so if neither of those times work, we can just plan you in.
And I do want to make the offer again that you mentioned in the very beginning. Your child, your student may not be going to North Central, but we are your community college. We will answer questions as you're going through the FAFSA, whatever. That's what we're there for. Give us a call, we're more than happy to help.